Hey RJ, how you doing this morning?
I am doing well, my friend. How about you?
Good. Hope you're a little cooler than we are. We've been 100 already, and it's well, end of July, so it is hot season in Texas here. But wish I was in San Diego with you
Yeah,
guys for sure.
I had lunch with some Austinites in LA yesterday, and I was like, "What? You guys don't get this weather every day?" I don't know. They didn't take kindly to that comment.
I know. Yeah, well, I certainly miss living out there. So today's really interesting. This is a great one. We're starting to get a little more specific and trying to help. We've had a few comments back asking for, well, how does it affect my industry and things. So today we picked one. And so today we're going to talk about how AI can really affect manufacturing and distribution. So why don't you go ahead and give us an introduction and talk about what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody realizes that AI is no longer an optional thing. It's not like this nice thing. Hey, I'll get to it later. It's happening. It's changing the way people do business. It is something that needs to be considered and understood because it's either going to be a competitive advantage or you're going to be at a disadvantage if you don't do it. So, in this webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through 5 practical ways AI is already transforming operations in manufacturing and distribution companies, from doing maybe things like inventory control to real-time customer service monitoring. And we'll go through a number of others. We're actually going to go through 5. And if you stick around till the end, we'll give you a bonus 10 that we'll just kind of roll through pretty quickly. So there'll be a lot of options and ways that we can share what we're seeing companies do that are being successful. And then we'll even talk and maybe reference one of our earlier webinars where we talked about, well, where do you start? So we'll do a little bit of a refresh there. But one thing I think is really, maybe is an important stat that I think is super relevant here, is that 74%. So Forbes and Boston Consulting Group did these studies, and 74% of AI projects fail if companies try to do it on their own. I mean, the bottom line is it's a skill set. It's something you need experience doing. So trying to do it, company trying to do it by themselves is high risk. And then even the 26% that quote unquote get a product rolling, which is typically just just getting through a proof of concept or whatever it is, only 71% of those companies actually achieve success. So you're looking at,
It's
like,
the reverse. It's 71% of those never make it
oh,
beyond conceptual or proof of concept. So it's only 29% actually achieve success.
well, that's even a bigger number. Like, if I think about that, that's like 1 in 8.
Yeah.
So 7 out of 8 companies don't hit what is success. And really, so going back to where I started with that, was like, the key is having a good partner, knows what to do, has
Yeah.
done this before, has the right tools. And obviously there's going to be things about getting the company to adopt it and use it. And how do you do that from sort of a rollout and buy-in perspective? We'll talk a little bit about that. But maybe let's just dive in, Ron, with starting
Sure.
with one of like the first and use cases that we see or have seen that tends to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, the first one we chose, and I think this is big. I think everybody knows for most companies, the largest expense usually ends up being labor. But with manufacturing and distribution, it ends up being a little bit skewed because now all of a sudden we've got warehouses and machinery and factories and things like that. And so stock and inventory and buildings and stock levels control how many warehouses and how many trucks and how much distribution we do. I mean, so everything, while labor might be big, you might have, one driver, but you can imagine all of the stock, the inventory, and the truck and everything that they manage, the ripple effect of a single head count and how much that costs a manufacturing distribution company. So the first one we want to attack is monitoring levels, because that's a big one, right? So we don't want to overstock. We certainly can't afford to understock because it can slow down production. We want to reduce our carrying costs. We want to increase our inventory turnover, right? We want to ensure that our just-in-time delivery doesn't show up too late, right? Things like that. So there's a lot of things that we can do using AI and machine learning to do better forecasting and better demand. And I think you were telling me about a McKinsey stat. Don't you have a stat about what McKinsey said about monitoring levels and how it can really help out?
Yeah, well, the McKinsey report was that AI-enabled supply chain forecasting can reduce errors by up to 50% up to 50%. And inventory can reduce inventory costs by 20 to 50%. I mean, you're talking like big numbers there, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like 5% or 10%. I mean, when you're talking 50%, even the 20% on the low end, as far as, cost reduction, that's massive.
It's huge. Yeah,
So,
that's great. So anyway, that's the first one. And I want to move through these relatively quickly so we have time to cover the additional 10. So we have all 15. So let's
yeah.
go ahead and move on to use case 2.
Yeah, and this one I think is really important. We've talked in the past about like digital transformation, different things, and a lot of times meeting your customers where they are. And there's younger and younger buyers that expect all these really seamless experiences and that sort of thing. So this one is more about using AI from sort of a help desk and identifying potential customer issues. So you can be using AI to detect like customer pain points before they really even escalate. AI can be monitoring like tickets and emails and chats or for issues that are happening to understand, okay, in my business, we're starting to see that this thing isn't working as well. And we're starting to get feedback from that sort of stuff. So you can go and take, proactively be able to manage and improve those processes or interactions or whatever it is to make sure it doesn't get any worse. And so I know that, Ron, you were talking about a stat from Gartner on that very same topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to call one of these out that's low hanging fruit, this seems to be the one that everybody's adopting, right? And Gartner said by 2026, 75% of B2B customer service operations are going to be using AI to both triage and escalate issues, right? It's relatively easy. And let me just give the quick example here. I have AI monitoring, and we'll just pick one, my help desk, right? Where my customers throw in their tickets. And remember, they're throwing tickets in 24/7, but our sales staff or support staff might only be 10 hours a day. We're off at 6 o'clock. So at 7:30 after hours, a ticket comes in and RJ's hot under the collar. And he's like, I demand a phone call and I want a phone call right now, or I'm getting my attorney. Well, if nobody's there reading every ticket that's being put in because they're off hours and support is only 8 to 6, what happens with RJ? Well, we allow RJ, who's one of our largest accounts, escalate and get mad and steam and realize that we don't care about him just because it's an hour after hours, right? But AI can very easily be scanning and scrolling through those things and get back to him and respond to him and says, RJ, thank you for your escalation. Let me see if I can reach someone after hours for you and just send a quick response back to RJ, which can make him happy and potentially stop him from going to social media and go on the offensive, which happens quite often in this day and age, right? And then can turn around and start the communication chain. And if we have escalations, maybe we've told AI, hey, if it's after hours and it's an escalation and it's one of these 50 top accounts or whatever, please ping, please notify, whatever we do. And we can respond. We can take after hours and go, hey, we know you don't have an SLA, but this is an emergency. We got you. Let me reach somebody and we can call them back. Or, hey, there's nothing I can do tonight, but I've heard you. We'll get on that first thing in the morning. Matter of fact, I know Ron's going to be in early. Let me call him. And he's out in Texas in a better time zone. Let me call him and get him on it first thing in the morning. Does that work for you, RJ? And at least he knows we've heard him, we've escalated it, and we're going to be immediately on it as fast as we can.
Yeah. And that's, one thing you mentioned one thing in there that's a little bit of a bonus too, right? That you can use this even, to monitor different social media channels or whatever it is and understand sort of customer sentiment. So it's not only just, to your point, fixing the issue, internally, it's, sort of mending the fence with that relationship and getting ahead of that. So if you can, start to see that there's chatter or whatever within a company, okay, we need to escalate our engagement with them and make sure that they're in a good spot.
Yeah. Speaking of large accounts, right? That's kind of use case number 3 here. How great would it be? And this is something that I've been working with my clients because we've been doing integrations now the entire time I've been here. And one of the integrations that I try to talk clients into, and some of them get it, and those that do benefit greatly. Some just don't get it. I'm like, listen, I know we're integrating your e-commerce and your sales portal that we design and build with your ERP for fulfillment and stock counts and pricing and all that. But what you should be doing, and 90% of them don't do it, is you should also pay to integrate into the CRM. And they're like, why? They don't have anything to do with fulfillment. Like, yes, but if this portal is where all of your customers are purchasing, paying their bills, browsing, ordering, reordering, don't you want all of that activity going up into the CRM so the sales guy can walk in tomorrow and go, here's a new report. Every morning I walk in and I see a report called Customers at Risk, and it shows me any customer who hasn't logged into the portal for 30 days. Simple stuff. Well, with AI, we can do a lot more than that. Right now with AI, we can go, hey, I want you to track the cyclical changes, and I want you to go back over and look at all of my large accounts for this quarter and look at the last 5 quarters and see if there's any trend that deviates more than 1% up or down, right? Quarter to quarter, because I know that things change between quarters and they're seasonal and cyclical and things like that. But you can imagine how granular we can get for the prospecting for the inventory counts. We can do the same thing with sales trends, right? So we can be monitoring our largest accounts and going, hey, wait a minute. For the last previous 3 years, RJ put in a big order in July, and here we are mid-August, and he didn't put that same order in, and sales are down. RJ's our biggest customer. I'm going to pick up the phone proactively and go, hey, I noticed that you normally the past 3 seasons put in your order for XX and X, right? And you hadn't ordered that yet. Is that something that I can help you with, or have things changed over at your organization, right? Maybe I can start raising the red flag before, well, you guys were more priced, so I went to your competitor. Shoot, man, I'm sorry I missed that. I wish you would have given me a chance to win that. Well, I looked at your report, and it looks like your next big purchase is coming up, in March when you're seeding the fields again. Is that something that I can earn your business? Can you please give me an opportunity to potentially retain your business instead of giving it up? Had I known, I could have gone back and maybe done something for you.
Yeah,
we have worked together, pull on the strings. We've worked together 5 years. I'd love to keep you as a client. You've been a great client, right?
Yeah, and I see, the Deloitte study that we were discussing showed that just by sort of using AI to monitor large accounts like that, to look for those opportunities or risks or whatever, the organizations that do that see a 15 to 20% increase in the revenue from those large accounts. So it pays off, right? It does pay off. So that's a really important stat.
Yeah, we looked at the negative there. The positive of that going up, obviously, AI is looking for upsell opportunities. Oh, by the way, I see that next month you're going to seed the fields, and you do that. One of the new products we just came out with that helps us reduce cost of pesticide. We're able to do X, X, and X. How about this? And it gives you additional opportunities to upsell, cross-sell, and give better insights. 3 of my other largest accounts, I don't know if this is secret information, but I've seen that you haven't bought this, but 3 of my other big accounts just bought this last week. Is there something you need to know, or something that's new? Whatever it is, right? You've got opportunities there to play off information between accounts to help others along for those upsell opportunities. So let's go in, since we're talking about metrics and tracking, let's go ahead and introduce the next topic.
Yeah, and this one's maybe a little bit, more. I wouldn't say in the weeds, but you're talking about more internal functions right here. So this is using AI to analyze production metrics and doing that to report any sort of anomalies. So, there's a lot of data that can be thrown off by production metrics. It can be super difficult for somebody, to try to look at that sea of data and try to understand, like, okay, what sort of trends are going on? What is it? Is it working? Is it not working? But that is really the strength of AI, is to take all that data, use that data, to understand what does it look like when things are normal and production's running smoothly and yields are what they should be, and output all works, and it's within a certain tolerance or whatever it is. But then using it to really see, okay, if there's a little tick up here or there, that could be indicative of a future problem. That's really where you want to investigate, because that's going to decrease downtime. It's going to be able to get ahead of like maintenance schedules or different things that can be really important to production, and making sure production is being as efficient as possible. Instead of waiting for something to be an issue, you can sort of catch those things early. And, whether it's like, a faulty sensor or whatever that is, you can, use AI to sort of look through this mountain of data and understand those little things that can become really important if you don't catch them early. So that's another key use from a manufacturer's perspective.
Well, I mean, we do this in our daily lives every day, right? I mean, I have to have a sticker in front of my face saying you need your oil changed by this date or this many miles, because I'm not tracking that, right? I'm not monitoring that stuff. My car has to come up and remind me and say maintenance warning, right? Otherwise, we don't do it. However, can you imagine if I was really tracking the stats, and the IBM statistic says that AI can reduce unexpected equipment failures by 30%, and lower maintenance costs by up to 25%. You can imagine for these manufacturing and distribution companies where that's one of their biggest expenses, to reduce it by 5% is a big deal, but as much as 25 to 30% is incredible, right? So can you imagine taking my car example? If I was monitoring my car very, very closely, and so I knew that, and right now I'm driving a Honda Accord, right? So let's say my Honda Accord on average got 31.2 miles a gallon, and I'm just clocking that like clockwork. And I know that if I do regular gas, it gets 29.4. I know if I do premium, I get 31.8, but I know it costs an extra 60 cents a gallon. So is it worth it? And I'm really going through the numbers and stats, which is what AI can do, right? So I know where the best value of my dollar is. But I also know that with premium gas, I have to do service less often. It runs cleaner. And so there's other side effects and benefits. So if I'm tracking and all of a sudden I'm running premium and I average 31.8, and without switching from premium, I notice that I drop down to 29.2 miles a gallon, something might be going on with my engine. So maybe it's like, oh, maybe I got dirty gas from the local, and I won't pick on anybody, right? The local, whatever it is, Quickie Mart will make something up so we don't pick on anybody. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's go down to the AutoZone and grab one of the fuel injection cleaners, and let's run that through the tank and see if it's, cleans it up and see if we get back to normal, right? So I might do something preventative when there might be something that says the oil's breaking down, and whatever oil place I got my oil changed last time, it's breaking down a little earlier. And I always do fully synthetic. They claim it goes 10,000. I would never go more than 5. But let's just say I do the 10,000, and at 7,000 miles, this starts happening and the oil starts breaking down. The viscosity is not there, and I really do need maintenance. I don't know that. I don't see that because that sticker up there and the car is going to ping me at 10,000 miles, right? But if I'm truly monitoring my statistics, and I see you use the word yield, right? Especially in these manufacturing, if the yield starts dropping by something that's outside of that control margin, it's going to automatically start throwing up flags. And I know we have machine learning and some of the stuff you guys have been doing for a long time that already does some of that. But this is now not just what the machine sees specifically. This is outside of that, watching all of the trends across other facilities, across everything, across gas prices and speed limits and all kinds of things that your machine learning inside your factory has nothing to do with, right? We can be monitoring all of that stuff. We realize there's a strike outside at the gas pumps. And so you're like, everything inside's going perfectly fine, but we may want to slow down production because we know we're not going to be able to get gas in 3 days when this is all manufactured, whatever, right? Those are the kind of things that we can really address there. Anything else you wanted to add about metrics or reporting before we move on to the last one?
I think let's go to the number 5.
Yeah. So the last one, again, is kind of back to the materials, right? We kind of talked about monitoring low stock inventories and things like that. But what if we could go out and start doing research globally about where we can source all of our raw materials? I think you guys have probably at least heard, I haven't heard of for a few years. Remember that old site, kayak.com, right?
Oh, yeah.
TripAdvisor.com, all of those, right? You can go to those and do a quick search, and it looks across everything and finds the best deals for you, right? What if we had our own internal kayak.com consistently running 24/7, shopping around? I remember back in the day when I lived just right across the street from Micron in Utah. The housing crisis in Utah blew up one summer because the where Kingston Ram in Korea was made, it burned down. And so Micron, that was in Idaho, said, hey, we needed to build a new facility and we need to go into production really quick. Ram back then was like $37 a meg or something. It was crazy expensive. And they're like, so they came in and offered every concrete company in Utah double wage if they would walk off their jobs and come work on their new factory real quick so they could get it built. So this Micron facility started going and going and going and going. And 10 months in, all of a sudden production stopped because Korea got their shop back up and running. They were in production and they still hadn't had the manufacturing plant in Utah. And it sat idle for almost 10 years before somebody finally came in to finish the building, right? It threw everything off because they couldn't track, they couldn't predict, they couldn't know. They thought they could build and get into production before Korea could get the facility back up and running, right? People just don't understand and they don't know. But what if you had somebody out there that could be doing all of that research and somebody could say, hey, that plant just did that. That just happened in Korea. If we can turn up and run an after hours run on our RAM manufacturing line, and for right now, pay overtime and run an extra 6 hours, we could increase output just in that 6 hours by, 75%. We can take advantage of this right now. That could have been seen by AI. AI would know that because it's looking globally at everything. It's looking at the price of everything. It's looking and saying the demand is going to go up because production of the second, the largest RAM production company in the world just went out. RAM's going to become scarce. Price is going to go up. And so there's lots of things we could do, right? We could hinge and bump our prices up 5% literally immediately because people are going to start clamoring and racing and go and buying up all the RAM. And then we can increase production. There's so many things we can do if we just know, but you have to have those eyes and ears out there. And that's what AI can do that we just can't do, right? On billions of pieces of data.
Yeah, the thing that, I met with the manufacturer just yesterday. And, with all the stuff that's going on with tariffs and increase in price of goods, and how do you sort of understand how you should account for that and potentially price changes, or do I need to buy more now because I think it's going to do this later, and all these sort of things. There's, we are in such a dynamic space right now from a raw materials perspective. It's like almost impossible to stay on top of. And that's definitely an application where AI could sort of do a lot of that heavy lifting, provide a lot more insights, because, even just looking at, this Bain report that we had pulled up before talks about, using something like this. And this is talking about dynamic procurement, like being able to really be understanding like what's all going on to make that decision. You can reduce input costs by 5 to 10%, and we're talking about, critical raw materials for your manufacturing process. 5 to 10% is massive. And especially when you're looking at such a volatile market right now, that's not like a one-time thing. That's like an all the time thing, right? So that should be like, part and parcel of just the way that companies do businesses now, because otherwise you just, you can't make a decision, and somebody else is going to make a decision. They're going to make a better decision because they're using AI effectively. And then you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage, just like we sort of talked about, in the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah. I think one of the things you brought up, I don't remember if you said you're standing still or you're falling behind. I think you said, if you're not using AI, you're falling behind. And some of the things that some of our clients are telling us, they're like, hey, dude, we had a 7% growth rate last year. We're at 8% this year. We're not falling behind. Well, the Forbes study says that people using AI and using it well are achieving 1.5 to 2.4 times growth. So you want to take your 8% and call that a win while your competitor's doing 240%, and you want to call that a win? You're falling further behind. It doesn't matter, because if they were doing 7% last year, you were doing 7%, you do 8% and they do 240%. What is the gap? Okay. Yeah. You're falling behind. They just leave you behind. Right. And that's the thing that we're trying to do, is we're trying to help organizations be competitive and be as good as they can be. Right. And if nothing else, stay up with the competition. We don't want you to lose traction. We want you to gain traction. We want you to gain momentum. And AI can help do that, right? It's just a better mousetrap. I mean, we're moving from calculators to computers. We're now moving from computers to supercomputers. And that's really all AI is, right? Yeah. It's just another supercomputer. It's shifted gears. We're moving on to the next gear. And that's really what it is. And people are doing it. And if you don't, your competitors are going to drive in sixth gear, being able to do 100, and you're stuck in fifth doing 70. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be, right?
Yeah, and just as we're sort of closing this out for this session, we'll get to the 10 extras here in just a second, the bonus round. But it's I know it's a daunting thing, right? It can be overwhelming, and what you do. I think that we go back to like, look, you don't need to hire a full data science team and try to figure it out on your own. Matter of fact, you should not do that at all. right? You need to work with a partner like Clarity or Friends of Commerce that has done this, that understands this, that can really, identify 1 to 2 quick wins, a proof of concept that can start to get the momentum going, and, do this in sort of incremental bites, so that, that's always going to lead to better outcomes, whether it's something, like we talked about here, which is like forecasting or customer support triage or something like that. Get some momentum. Make sure the other thing, and we haven't spent a ton of time on it today, but make sure you have your own raw materials for AI ready to go, which is clean data, right? Yeah. Got to have the data, got to have clean data, got to have all that stuff set up so you can ingest that into the AI models that can get you the accurate outputs, right? And then, then you're off and running, and you're doing it in a measured approach. You're not too far out over your skis or way behind. You're just getting going, and you're doing what you need to do so that you can get those force multiplying effects you're talking about, Ron, when you're, doubling your growth or whatever it is, which is going to be, that's the way the world's moving. And it's, get ahead or get behind. And it's, you've got to make those moves, and we're here to help and do that. And it's something that, is going to be, I think, the make or break for business, really, in the not too distant future. But it's got to start now, because it takes a little bit of time, right? So
yeah, RJ and I did another, you want to look in the channel, we did another one. It's like how to get started in AI, and one of the big ones, and he kind of just started talking about it, and it really covered it in this other webinar, is your team all thinks that AI is going to replace them. They don't want to adopt, they don't want to move forward. RJ mentioned that we got to get your data clean, because that's one of the biggest ones and one of the most time consuming. But the biggest impact for me that I see is you need to prepare your team to adopt and embrace AI. Because if you throw it in there and you get it and you try to implement it and they don't support it and they don't use it, it's going to fail, right? So one of the things I know we keep talking about, start small, do a proof of concept, get some wins under your belt. Part of the reason is you want to illustrate to your team, hey, look, this is just going to enhance your job. This is just going to make our lives better. This is just going to give us more insight so we can be more successful and do more strategic things. This isn't going to replace you. This is actually going to help us speed up and do better and be more efficient, whatever all the statistics are that we're going to try to improve in all these 15 different ways, right, that we're going to cover today that we can do that. So that's another really big one. So you'll want to watch that other webinar on how to get started. So RJ, why don't you kick us off and take the first 5 of our bonus 10 more ways that AI can be used in manufacturing and distribution?
Absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about this, sort of predictive maintenance for equipment, that's something that you can set up and sort of, run with. If it's something where there's you've got a delivery component, you can use AI to optimize sort of routing and fleet management. Some of those things gain efficiency, going back to your miles per gallon analogy you used there, right? Like, how are you getting the most out of that? There's things you can do there, get that data. You can do quality control. You can do that via, computer vision, some imagery ingestion, those sort of things, where you can look and making sure that you're getting that consistent sort of quality, not only yield, but that the quality is where you want it to be. And you can do that at scale. Demand forecasting. So how can you anticipate where you need to ramp up and ramp down based on a lot of, macroeconomic and global, sort of components that are not, just inside of your facility, but that are influenced by a lot of outside dynamics that are out there. And, the things that are coming now, we're starting to see it even in like airline industry and things like that we use every day, is dynamic pricing. Right? Like, hey, it's depending upon, where you're at, which the customer is, what's the market conditions, what's the segment, that sort of stuff. So you can do dynamic pricing so that you're in a good spot from a margin perspective, and you're really maximizing your revenue in a way that works within the market. So those are a handful. Ron, what do you have on your side?
Yeah, the first one, I think a lot of companies are kind of already doing this one, but warehouse automation and robotics coordination. I know sometimes they do it on the line and they do it at the machine level, but at the macro level, where we can start tracking things between warehouses and between logistics and between suppliers and things like that. The next one is AI assisted procurement. We kind of talked about that with the raw materials and things like that. But this one we didn't on that procurement is supplier risk. Remember, if we looked at the thing just a minute ago about the RAM, if we knew that the Korean plant just burned down, now what are the suppliers that were supplying that factory? What are they going to do? They're looking to supply somebody because that factory is going to be down for, it was about 10 months. Can we reach out to those suppliers and say, hey, we know that you don't, can we maybe do what Southwest did a long time ago? Remember when they locked for so many years, and how they got so good was they locked the price of gas and said, we'll pay you X cents per gallon for the next 10 years if we can lock it in. And that's how they became successful. They actually said, and it was like 7 cents a gallon over going rate at the time. And so the suppliers were like, heck yeah. Well, then gas tripled and they were paying a third of what everybody else was. And so that's how they literally grew their business. The next one is energy usage optimization in factories, right? I know some of that's there, but I mean, if we can start checking and tracking expenses and utilities and costs and burn rate of different things between factories, between locations, and start finding out why one factory is using less electricity to another. And we didn't know that it was because we replaced this one valve and it's just working more efficiently than the others. We did it for traditional maintenance, but now all of a sudden something else positively was affected. Now we can maybe go back and see how to do other things there. AI-powered document processing, invoices, bill of ladings, compliance documents. I mean, remember, the one thing that AI has that we don't have: photographic memory, almost immediate recollection. It doesn't ever forget anything that's ever done, and can process millions, thousands upon millions of documents in minutes that we can't do. So there are so many things that it can do. One of the things it does very best is sift through data, right? So if you've got a lot of documents, if you've got a lot of different things, if you've got a lot of reconciliation, it's like we got to go back and look at every bill of materials against every inventory and make sure all that stuff was accounted for, where it went, make sure all the serial numbers for every piece of equipment that was sold is recorded in the CRM. That's the stuff that AI shines, right? It just cranks through that stuff and it never breaks a sweat, and it works 24/7 and it doesn't complain. I mean, it can be your best employee, if you will, right? Especially for the stuff that's hard, that's taxing on a body, right? So those are the kind of things that you really want to look out for. And then the last one we got here is employee safety monitoring and incident prediction, whether it's monitoring the cameras, because it can do that, right? So it's monitoring the cameras, or it's monitoring sensors, or it's monitoring the suggestion box, the quote unquote anonymous suggestion box. And so all of a sudden, one person complains, it's no big deal. But when the second one complains within the same amount of time or within an hour, something like that, we need to escalate this up real quickly, because, the suggestion box, usually people are asking for a pizza party. And so the boss only checks it once a month. Well, we could have it digital. And as people are putting things in, we could be monitoring it in real time, right? So something important comes in, a suggestion, then, so-and-so just slipped because the floors are wet because of condensation, because it's so hot outside, the AC unit's dripping water on the factory floor. It's a potential workman's comp claim. That's immediate. We don't want to wait till the end of the month for that, right? So those are the kind of things that it can monitor. So RJ, you want to close us out?
Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot of ground in this webinar, and it's a lot of ways, like I say, ideas of how to start, what to think about, how to position the organization, both from sort of a data perspective and just sort of a sentiment perspective, that AI isn't, to your point, isn't here to replace anybody. As a matter of fact, Ron, you and I were talking about some internal ways to utilize AI from a marketing perspective. And I know, my head of marketing was like seeing this as a superpower, right? Yeah. Like your employees can go, okay, I can use this to be better at my job, have a more marketable skill set. I can stay ahead of the curve in my career. So it's getting all those things ready to go, and doing that with a partner that just, it's just getting started, right? Getting started, doing step after step and grow. If no one's, you don't want to go for the home run in your first swing of the bat, right? It's like, how do we just get on base and just start, moving things forward? And that's where the win's going to come from. And that's where, when we're working with companies, Clarity and Friends of Commerce, that's the way we approach it. And it's manageable, it's predictable, and it works, and it's candidly it's becoming table stakes at this point in time. So I think this was a great topic. I think this segment, this market in particular, has so many strong ways you can use AI. Just makes a ton of sense. So I was, as usual, my friend, always good to chat with you and talk about these things that are so important. Anything that you have on your mind as we wind this down?
Yeah, no, just reach out to one of us, leave a comment below, or reach out to us on our website. We'd love to give you a free consultation, sit down and just chat about AI and see if there's any way we might be able to help you guys and help you along in your digital transformation journey. Thanks for joining. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.